Have you ever wondered why, despite having the same 24 hours as Elon Musk or Oprah Winfrey, most people never achieve extraordinary success? Why do so many of us settle for average lives, average careers, and average relationships? The harsh truth is that mediocrity isn't something that happens to you. It's a choice you make every single day. In the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal the invisible prison most people build around themselves, and the keys to breaking free that the top 1% of achievers already know. The most dangerous prison is the one you don't even realize you're in. Mediocrity begins with comfort, that warm, soothing blanket of the familiar that feels so good in the moment, but slowly suffocates your potential. Your brain is wired to conserve energy and avoid pain, which means it will fight tooth and nail to keep you in your comfort zone. Think about it. How many times have you chosen Netflix over working on your side project? How often have you hit snooze instead of hitting the gym? These small, seemingly innocent choices compound over time, cementing you firmly in the realm of the average. Mediocrity isn't just about actions. It's a state of mind. The average person has programmed themselves with limiting beliefs. That's not for people like me. I'm not talented enough. Or it's too late to start. These thoughts aren't random. They're protective mechanisms designed to keep you safe from failure, rejection, and the pain of stretching beyond your current capabilities. But here's what the extraordinary understand. These thoughts are just stories you tell yourself, not facts. The 1% don't have fewer negative thoughts. They simply refuse to be governed by them. They recognize that discomfort is the price of admission to an extraordinary life. Here's a truth that might shock you. Extraordinary success rarely comes from extraordinary actions. Instead, it comes from ordinary actions performed with extraordinary consistency. The world-class novelist doesn't write one brilliant chapter and call it a day. She writes consistently, often through periods of self-doubt and creative blocks. The billionaire entrepreneur doesn't make one smart investment. He makes thousands of small, smart decisions every day for years. Most people drastically overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and vastly underestimate what they can accomplish in a year of consistent effort. This is why mediocrity is so common. The path to greatness isn't sexy or exciting day to day. It's boring, repetitive, and sometimes painful. The 1% aren't necessarily more talented or luckier. They're simply willing to do the unglamorous work when no one is watching. Every day you make thousands of small decisions that seem insignificant in the moment, but collectively determine your destiny. What time you wake up, whether you respond to that email or scroll through social media, if you take that risk or play it safe, the average person makes these decisions based on what feels good now, while the extraordinary make decisions based on what aligns with their long-term vision. This is the decision deficit that keeps most people locked in mediocrity. They're unwilling to make temporarily uncomfortable decisions that lead to lasting fulfillment. Consider this. Every time you choose immediate gratification, you're voting for the person you are today over the person you could become tomorrow. Look around you right now. The people you spend the most time with, the physical spaces you occupy, the content you consume. This is your environment, and it's shaping you more than you realize. The 1% understand something the 99% ignore. Your environment is either lifting you up or dragging you down. There is no neutral. If you're the smartest, most driven person in your social circle, you're in the wrong circle. If your physical space is cluttered and chaotic, your mind will follow suit. If your media diet consists of mindless entertainment rather than education and inspiration, you're programming yourself for mediocrity. The extraordinary are ruthless about curating their environment because they know it's vastly easier to design an environment that supports excellence than to rely on willpower alone. The most profound barrier to extraordinary achievement isn't your skills, your knowledge, or even your habits. It's your identity. The stories you tell yourself about who you are determine the actions you're willing to take. If you identify as not a morning person, you'll never consistently wake up early, no matter how many alarm clocks you buy. If you see yourself as bad with money, no budgeting app will save you. The mediocre remain trapped in limiting identities that were often formed years or even decades ago based on limited evidence or one-time failures. The extraordinary, however, understand that identity is malleable. They deliberately adopt identities that serve their aspirations. I am the kind of person who keeps their word, especially to myself. Or, I am someone who embraces discomfort for growth. Your actions will always align with your identity, so the fastest path to behavioral change is identity change. The average person approaches learning with what psychologists call a fixed mindset, believing their abilities are largely set in stone. When they face difficulty, they take it as evidence of their limitations and give up. The extraordinary, by contrast, approach life with a growth mindset, viewing challenges as opportunities to develop their abilities. But the truly elite go even further. They adopt what I call a mastery mindset, embracing the fact that the path to mastery in any field is paved with failure, frustration, and countless hours of deliberate practice. They understand that discomfort is not just something to be tolerated on the path to excellence, it's a necessary ingredient. The pain of failure, the mental strain of pushing your capabilities, the social discomfort of being a beginner, these aren't obstacles to greatness. They are the path itself. Fear is the silent killer of potential. It masquerades as practicality, procrastination, perfectionism, or even logic. I'll start that business when the market is better. I'll pursue that dream once I'm more prepared. The mediocre allow fear to make their decisions by default. The extraordinary recognize their fears but act anyway. What separates them is not the absence of fear, but their relationship to it. They understand that fear is simply a signpost pointing toward growth, and that the things that scare you most are often precisely what you need to pursue. Consider the most successful people you admire. Every single one of them has walked directly into their fears repeatedly throughout their journey. Fear isn't just something to overcome on the path to an extraordinary life. Confronting it is the very substance of an extraordinary life. We live in the most distracting era in human history. With a few taps, you can access endless entertainment, social validation, and information, all designed to hook your brain's reward system and keep you coming back for more. The average person's willpower is no match for algorithms specifically engineered to hijack your attention. The extraordinary recognize this reality and design their lives accordingly. They don't rely on superhuman willpower. They create systems that make distraction difficult and focused work easy. They understand that in a world optimized for immediate pleasure, delayed gratification is your greatest competitive advantage. Every time you choose short-term comfort over long-term growth, you're making a withdrawal from your future self. The 1% are willing to do what others won't today, so they can do what others can't tomorrow. If you keep your goals to yourself, you've already set yourself up for failure. The extraordinary know that public commitment and external accountability dramatically increase your odds of success. They tell others about their goals, work with coaches or mentors, join mastermind groups, and establish concrete consequences for not following through. The average person, by contrast, keeps their ambitions private, often out of fear of failing publicly. But this privacy becomes permission to quit when things get hard. Remember, the pain of discipline weighs ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. By seeking accountability, you're not just increasing your chances of success. You're demonstrating a fundamental understanding that extraordinary achievement is rarely a solo journey. In a rapidly changing world, your ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn may be your most valuable asset. The extraordinary aren't just hardworking, they're deliberate learners who constantly refine their approach. They create tight feedback loops, seeking uncomfortable truth rather than comforting falsehoods. They don't just practice, they engage in deliberate practice that targets their weaknesses. And most importantly, they view failure not as something to be avoided at all costs, but as data, essential information that guides their growth. The mediocre, in contrast, avoid feedback, practice the same way for years without improvement, and take failure personally rather than strategically. Remember, the quality of your life will be determined by the quality of your questions and your willingness to face honest answers. One of the least understood secrets of extraordinary achievement is the power of momentum. The hardest part of any endeavor isn't the middle or the end, it's the beginning. Getting started in building initial momentum requires immense energy, which is why so many people remain stuck in planning mode or give up after initial setbacks. The extraordinary understand that motion creates emotion. They start before they feel ready, knowing that motivation often follows action rather than preceding it. Once momentum is established, maintaining it becomes the priority. They build unbroken chains of daily action, understanding that stopping completely and restarting is far more costly than maintaining even minimal progress. In physics and in life, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. Your task is not to wait for perfect conditions to begin, but to begin and create your own perfect conditions through sustained action. The pursuit of happiness is a guaranteed path to unhappiness. The extraordinary understand what the mediocre don't. Happiness is not found in the direct pursuit of personal pleasure, but as a byproduct of pursuing something greater than yourself. Without a compelling why behind your efforts, you'll inevitably surrender when faced with obstacles. The mediocre seek comfort, the extraordinary seek meaning. They align their daily actions with their deepest values and connect their work to a purpose that transcends their own self-interest. This isn't just philosophical, it's practical. Studies consistently show that people driven by purpose demonstrate greater resilience, make better decisions under pressure, and experience more fulfillment than those motivated primarily by personal gain. Your purpose doesn't need to be saving the world. It simply needs to be significant enough to pull you through the inevitable valleys of difficulty and doubt. Here's the ultimate irony of extraordinary achievement. The more desperately you chase success, the more it eludes you. True success comes not from frantic activity, but from aligned action. The extraordinary understand that success isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters. They focus on mastering fundamentals rather than constantly seeking hacks or shortcuts. They measure their progress against their previous selves rather than against others. Most importantly, they redefine success on their own terms, not by society's standards. The mediocre chase external markers of success, luxury possessions, impressive titles, or social validation, without asking if these things actually bring fulfillment. The extraordinary start with the end in mind, defining what a well-lived life means to them personally, then working backward to align their daily actions with that vision. Mediocrity isn't your destiny. It's a decision you make repeatedly through small choices that compound over time. The gap between average and extraordinary isn't talent or luck. It's in these daily decisions about comfort versus growth, instant gratification versus delayed rewards, fear versus courage, and distraction versus focus. The path to an extraordinary life isn't complex, but it's challenging, requiring you to consistently choose the harder, more worthwhile option when everyone around you is taking the easy route. Let me leave you with this. What if you look back on your life 20 years from now and realize you had spent 2 decades living someone else's definition of success? What if you recognize that you had the potential for greatness but settled for good enough? This isn't about becoming famous or wealthy. It's about living deliberately, stretching your capabilities, and refusing to accept limitations that exist only in your mind. The choice between mediocrity and excellence isn't made once. It's made moment by moment, day after day. What choice will you make today